Welcome to Guided Hearts. Please subscribe.
Greetings of peace. In this video, I'm going to talk about why I chose Islam of all religions and why I fell in love with Islam and why I ultimately made the decision to convert. Several people asked me this question in some of my previous videos in the comments, and so I thought I would take the time to address it. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the theology because you can look into that on your own, but I did want to share with you sort of the main points, the things that really resonated with my heart, the big questions that I had that needed to be answered, and then also share some thoughts now that it's been 31 years when I look back on things that really did make a big difference, things that really mattered to me. So the one starting point from when I was a child was just knowing in my heart that there was one God. There was someone out there watching me who knew everything that was in my heart, why I did what I did, knew me very intimately. And I can't really explain why, but that's just something that I really believed from the time that I was a child. So when I started on my faith journey, I knew it had to be one of the monotheistic faiths. It had to be either Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. Now, I wasn't born Jewish, so I knew that I probably was not Jewish. And Christianity posed a challenge for me because I'm a logical person and the idea of Trinity just did not make sense. And so that really left me with Islam. I went and I checked out a book on Islam at the library. So at the time, I was a graduate student at Cornell University getting my MBA. And I started to read the theology. And I was really surprised that it was already everything that I intuitively knew to be true. I recognized in what I read the truth. It resonated with me. I didn't find anything that was objectionable or that was counterintuitive or that was foreign. I was looking for it, but I didn't find it. And if anything else, it brought me a lot of comfort. I was very, very surprised that this was what the religion of Islam called for. And, you know, when you see truth, you recognize it. It resonates in your heart. Something really touches you. And I felt that. And the truth of the matter is it didn't really take me that long in terms of reading about the faith and even picking up the Quran and reading a little bit of it. Surah Baqarah, which is the longest chapter. It's the second chapter of the Quran when you pick up, any English translation. I felt like I was reading the truth. It had a weight and a gravitas about it. So to be honest, it really didn't take me that long, relatively speaking, to know in my heart that it was the truth. It took me about 2.5 years from the first time that I became intrigued with Islam to the point that I actually converted. I would probably say within the first 6 months or less, I already knew in my heart that this was the truth. But the rest of the journey had a lot more to do with me coming to terms with my own identity, whether I could believe that I could be Muslim, and also trying to work through all the confusion from how people in the world perceived Muslims and Islam. There was just this disconnect between this beautiful faith that I was learning about through books and sort of the public perception of Islam and Muslims. That took a long time to work through. So that was number one, believing in one God, recognizing what I felt was the truth, having it resonate and land really in my soul, and recognizing that this is just a really pristine theology. This was something that I had been searching for and that made sense. Now, part of this theology is that if you are Muslim, you believe in God, you believe in the angels, you believe in all the prophets of God from the time of Adam to Prophet Abraham, Prophet Noah, Prophet Moses, all the way through Prophet Jesus, and the last prophet is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all of them. Now, that also was extremely comforting for me, knowing that this one creator brought all of these prophets, and that part of being Muslim was to believe in all of them, to revere all of them, to know that they all were bringing the same message from the same God. And this is what connected all of us together, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. that was extremely powerful, because it wasn't like this is a one-off religion. This is something that was spun off from something weird. It's like, this is what it's always been from the beginning. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that Islam was connected to Judaism and Christianity in that way. So that was an eye-opener. And then also to understand that the concept of Trinity is something that was corrected in the theology of Islam, that the Quran came as a corrective for us to understand that this idea that Jesus is somehow God, part of a Trinity, is a corruption. In the Islamic tradition, Jesus holds a very sacred and elevated place. Jesus brought miracles. Jesus had an incredible impact, obviously, on the world, but Jesus was not God and not co-equal to God, not one of the co-equal parts of the Trinity. So the message from the Prophet Muhammad came as a corrective and also as a confirmation of the same messages that were brought by all of the prophets that came before. So when you think about it, all of the messages were consistent from God. And none of the other prophets talked about a Trinity. So to me, the idea of Trinity felt like an aberration. And when I understood what the message of Islam was that corrected the idea of the Trinity, it made it make sense for me that Jesus is a prophet like all of the other prophets, bringing the same message. What I also loved about the Islamic message is that it was a message for all of humanity. It was not exclusive. It wasn't that if you are not a Jew, then you're out, or if you're not Christian, you're out. In the Islamic message, not everyone is intended to become Muslim. And so this was a really important point for me. One of my big questions is, what happens to the really beautiful people that I know in my life, my family members, people that I love, who I know will never become Muslim? Does that mean that there's no place for them in God's heaven? And no, it states very clearly in the Quran that there will be not just Muslims, but also Jews and Christians and others in heaven. And we know in our tradition that that is God's business. It's not for us to judge. So that was also very powerful for me, because you often hear messages of, from people coming and telling you, if you're not this or you're not that, you're not making it to heaven. Well, in our tradition, it's actually really not our business. And everyone has their own journey, and it's between them and God. That's really beautiful. Another concept that was important was the idea of original sin, which is part of the Christian message, that Jesus died for our sins. And it's very clear in Islamic theology that no one can bear the burden of the sin of another person. So it's not possible that Jesus could die so that all of the sins of everyone else could be washed off. It's simply not fair. It's not just. But the message is that we are each accountable for our own actions, and we will be held accountable for our own actions. We cannot be held accountable for someone else's actions because we can't control their actions, and that's just simply not fair. And I believe that my God is just and beautiful, and that was very consistent with that idea. And even the idea that a baby could be born with sin is counterintuitive. It's illogical. The baby hasn't done anything, and from what anyone can see, babies are pure. They're clean, they're beautiful. That simply does not make sense. I felt, if nothing else, my God had to make sense to me and not expect me to believe something that was irrational, especially when it was so clear what I was reading directly addressed the confusion and the questions I had about the things that didn't sit right with me with Christianity. Here was my answer. And of course, so much of my faith journey was really just about trying to figure out, what is my purpose? What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? Why are we all here? Make it make sense, please. I really wanted to know what happens after you die, and what's the relationship between this life and the next. In Islamic theology, that is made clear, that this life is a test and that there is a life to come, and that what you do in this life will determine what will happen in the afterlife. And this is also how we make sense of what happens in this world. A lot of people ask the question, why does so much evil happen in this world? Why is there so much injustice in this world? And the way that you square the circle is that in the afterlife, whatever injustice takes place in this life will be accounted for in the next. So this was really, really meaningful, that this life is a test, that every single person is given their own unique set of circumstances. I mean, obviously, none of us gets to choose where we're born, who our parents are, where in the world we're born, whether we're rich, whether we're poor, whether we're healthy, whether we're handicapped. There's just so many things that are out of our control. We were each given strengths and weaknesses and gifts and talents. And part of the test is figuring out what our gifts are, what our weaknesses are and our strengths, and what we will do with what we were given. And on the final day, God is extremely just, and God will judge you on your own individual circumstances. God will not hold you accountable for things that you could not control, but God will hold you accountable for the things that you were able to control. And that's ultimately fair. And that was something that really resonated with me. Becoming Muslim felt like coming home. Felt like the home that I already knew in my heart, but that I had spent so much of my early days searching for. It was a space that made sense. It was a place that felt safe, where you understood what the point was. So I'd really like to share some thoughts, especially in this moment of time. We are now entering the last 10 days of Ramadan in 2025. And in the last several days, we have witnessed the end of what people referred to as the ceasefire. But we have seen an incredible escalation in killing by Israel, encouraged and supported by Trump. And we have seen hundreds upon hundreds of children killed, bombed, horrible images coming out. And as we sit here and we witness what is happening in Palestine, and there's nothing we can do. We are living here in America, and we know that our government is funding and encouraging and escalating the slaughter of Palestinians. And we look around to other countries. Can any other countries intervene? And we see the laws challenged and broken down. We see that our government is sliding into authoritarianism, dictatorship. So much is falling apart at the seams. This is the time when it means so much to reflect on what our religion is teaching us, what Islam means for us, what our theology tells us in this time of absolute hardship. I go back to the things that I raised about what was really pivotal for me in my decision to become Muslim. A really important understanding is equality, that God made each and every human being equal in worth. We are all extremely different. We all have different circumstances. We all have different challenges. But fundamentally, no life is worth more than another, not because one has more privilege, not because one has more intelligence. Everyone is equal. And when you think about that, that has profound meaning. Especially at my age. I'm 58. There are many classmates that I went to school with that are no longer with us. You see in the news, people of all ages die. I'm looking at my elderly parents, and I know that they are on the last chapter of their lives. I have friends who have lost their parents. They come to this earth, they leave, it's an event. Life continues. We're all going to die. And at that moment, you can't take anything with you. And all that you have that's waiting for you is whatever you've paid forward. And the legacy that you leave behind is whatever good deeds you've done. So when you see so much death, it makes you really think, what is this life really about? It's a short life. The fact that I'm 58, but I don't know how I got to be 58. I don't know if anyone else has that feeling, but time passes very, very quickly. I feel like I'm still in my 30s, but here I am. In a very short amount of time, I will be as old as my parents on the last chapter of my life. And when you see what's happening in Palestine and you see the devastation and the suffering, and you think about the tests that they are being put through, we're all going to be together as God is passing judgment and taking a look at what did we do in our lives? What were the choices that we made? The people in Palestine did not have many choices. But we do here in America. You know, it's a really interesting idea that you will each be judged on everything that you were given. So these people, Trump and Elon Musk, and all of the people in privilege who have so much wealth and so much power, well, they're going to be held to a very different standard than the people in Palestine who have absolutely nothing and have no power. And then what does it say for people like me? or people like maybe if you are watching this video and you are like me, where you're somewhere in between, where maybe you have a certain amount of privilege, you have a certain amount of influence. Each of us will be judged on what we have done with what we were given. And so as I sit here in privilege, I try to think very carefully about what I can and can't do, because I know I'm going to be held to a much higher standard than someone who has less than me. So the point is, though, that we are all equal in worth before God's eyes. We each have been given our own unique package or challenge or context. God knows what we did in this life. God knows what we could have done in this life and maybe chose not to do. God knows your intentions, and that matters. God sees everything. God knows everything. Nothing can be hidden from God. And God makes promises that only God can keep. And we know from our Quran that goodness will always prevail over darkness. Light will always prevail over dark. And so much of it is for us an individual choice. This life is a test, and it's not meant to be easy. Those tests are meant to help you grow, help you learn, help you get stronger, help you develop, and hopefully do a lot of good in this world before we leave this planet. I know that when I meet God, I want God to be happy with me. I know that when I do good, it makes me feel good. And when I do bad, it doesn't. I believe that God wants us to be good, to be virtuous, to be divine, to be godly in our behavior. A lot of times these hardships are intended to help us remember God and to turn to God and come closer. And you're either moving in the direction of the light or you're moving in the opposite direction. And that's why sometimes it's really incredible for me to recognize that there are so many people that are just so comfortable doing evil, making people suffer, and people who don't see it. The genocide in Palestine has been such an eye-opener for the world. It's been a red line. Which side are you on? What do you see? To me, that says everything. But I know that on the final day, God will have seen everything, and God will make it right. Look at the people in Palestine. They have absolutely nothing, but they have such unshakable faith in God. This is something for us to really reflect on, really believe in, really apply to our lives. I mean, they don't have a choice. It's not like it's for us to hold them in awe as if they've been given something wonderful. They have to suffer a lot. I mean, yes, when it matters the most, they will have more than any of us. They will die martyrs. But we're here now, and they're suffering. I am so grateful that I was not given that test. But maybe my test is harder because I have choice. They don't have choice. And so it's something to think about. This is a really hard time for anyone who has a heart, anyone who has empathy. Does it matter whether you're Muslim, Christian? It matters if you have a heart. If you see what's happening in the world. If you see the outrage. To me, if you feel that outrage and you are doing whatever you can, that means you're on the side of God and you're on the side of goodness. And that's what matters right now in this world. My Islamic experience teaches me that you're on the right side if you are feeling the weight, the pain, the suffering. Sometimes it's too much, but as long as we continue to push and do whatever we can, I think that's what really matters. Oh, it's so hard to say anything when we sit here in privilege and it's just, everything is just so weighty. But I think knowing that the point is that this life is a test, this life is short. You got to do everything you can to produce goodness, pay it forward, send it forward, because none of us know when our last day is, but we know it will come. We will all die, and we can't take any of this with us except what we have done. Whatever goodness we've sent forward and whatever goodness we've left behind. And just knowing that those are the rules of the game make all the difference. So I really encourage you, if you're interested in learning about Islam and discovering a very beautiful theology, a beautiful understanding of why we're here, what the world is for, what our role is in it, and what will happen to us when we die, something that really rings true with your heart and your soul and your mind, I really encourage you to take a look at the work we're doing at the Usuli Institute, the Project Illumin Quranic commentaries really open up the meaning of the Quran for our day and age and give us the strength and the courage and the empowerment and the liberation to do what we were put on this earth to do. So what you do matters. God is with you. God sees everything. And again, I come back to the most important thing in this world is to develop your personal relationship with God. So in these last 10 days of Ramadan, this very sacred month that is intended for us to draw closer to God, to turn inward, to think about our lives thus far and what we want to achieve moving forward with whatever life God gives us from here forward, I hope that we will all find our way to doing everything we can to produce as much goodness as we can with whatever we've got. I hope that you will take the time to build your relationship with God and stay the course. This journey has been incredible. I'm often so grateful that I have faith, that I have Islam, that I have the understanding of why we're here. It's something that every person can find if they are searching and they ask God to guide them. And I pray that in this really, really difficult time, that all of us will find our way to the beauty and love and the comfort that God gives us by extending God's hand, helping us find beauty, helping us create beauty, and helping us ultimately choose the path of light over the path of darkness in every single instance. Thank you so much for listening. If this was valuable for you, please do hit the like button, comment, share. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section wherever you are. I send you my greetings of peace, love, and light, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I hope you have a wonderful last 10 days of Ramadan.
When you give dawah to non-Muslims, always do it with kindness and patience. Dawah is about sharing the message of Islam in a gentle and respectful way. When your words are calm and your intention is sincere, people are more willing to listen and understand. Good character is one of the most powerful ways to invite others to Islam. Be honest, helpful, and respectful in your daily life. When people see your kindness and good manners, they may become curious about the faith that guides you. If someone asks questions, answer them politely and with patience. Do not argue or speak harshly, even if they disagree with you. A gentle conversation can leave a good impression and open hearts. Allah rewards every effort you make for His sake. Every kind word, every smile, and every moment of patience is rewarded. Even if someone does not accept Islam, your sincerity and good character will still bring you great reward from Allah.